Good afternoon on what is a cool, grey and cloudy day. It is Sunday the 25th of February and I'm in the reading up with a nice hot cup of tea. And a box which has this all over it. More Warhammer, more often. Now this is in fact my first box of content direct from Games Workshop in, well, just trying to think, 40 odd years. It's got to be 40 odd years since I ordered anything direct from Games Workshop, because at the time when I was buying from Games Workshop, I could buy it from the shops. Of course Games Workshop has changed, and there's an awful lot of things from Games Workshop that I don't buy. So the question is, what was it that I bought from Games Workshop? Let's find out, especially in as big a box as this. I do like the look of this box. It's really kind of got its own, almost even got its own character, you know. Oh, that's a Games Workshop box. With the tape on it and everything. So try and cut through the tape carefully. Okay, first things first, I don't know what's in here yet, because there's that. So pull that out, and that out, and that out, and that out. So there's 4 of these so far. Then I've got a bit of paper, the packing slip, and then what I've got, let's put those back in, give yourself a bit of space. And these sort of nice concertina kind of pack material. It is this Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader by Rick Priestley. So let's see what's on the front. Imperium approved, Citadel miniatures. Okay, so originally released in 1987, the Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader rulebook launched Games Workshop's world-renowned science fiction tabletop game, Warhammer 40,000, bringing to life a hostile galaxy where only the psychic mind of the Emperor and the gathered might of his armies can save mankind. This book introduced detailed rules and background for the Space Marines, Inquisition, Eldar and Orcs, and as well as many other forces still available to collect and play with today. Produced to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Warhammer 40,000, this special edition facsimile recreates in stunning detail this iconic piece of tabletop wargames history. Whether you are new to the hobby or have been with us from the start, we hope you enjoy this book. And remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. So, all right. I never ever had a copy of Warhammer Rogue Trader. Because by the time it came along, Games Workshop was moving away from what I was interested in. It was becoming a miniatures and wargame company, not a role-playing company, which is what I wanted. Companies changed, times changed. That happened. It was 40 years ago. So, and the other thing that was Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader was originally, as I seem to recall, sort of going to be the science fiction equivalent of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and it wasn't. So that wasn't what I wanted, and that's fine. Okay, there have been with the releasing of Dark Heresy in the noughties by the Black Library, Games Workshop, and then subsequently Fantasy Flight Games, and then the new games from Cubicle 7. What it gave me. That gave me a chance to play in the science fiction setting of Warhammer 40,000, because I've been able to play in Warhammer Fantasy Battles world, i.e. essentially Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, ever since that came out. But nonetheless, I am interested in role-playing history, gaming history, and when I saw that Games Workshop were doing a new reprinting of this, as a heritage reprinting of this, I said, why not? Let's have a look at it. Let's see what I missed out. Now, that said, I'm looking at see what I missed out. What it does not mean is that I'm going to rush out and start playing Warhammer 40,000, buying miniatures, painting them, and so on. That's still not my interest. I can appreciate it for what it was and what it is as a hobby, but it's not my hobby, and I don't have time to devote to that as well as the hobbies I've already got. So, but if you do like that, that's fine. You know, don't think that I'm criticising anybody for enjoying Warhammer Fantasy, Warhammer 40,000. See if I can just get this open. Doesn't want to. Just trying to be careful so I don't nick it with a knife. There we go. The seal is broken, so I can have a look inside. And the thing is, I probably have looked at this at some point. And, you know, somebody else would have had a copy, and I would have gone, oh, that's interesting. But this is not one that I really delved into any detail. You know, there's scads of fiction and lore attached to it, and I have friends who are deep into that. So I am going to have to do. What I'm going to have to do with this. This is not part of it. So I'm going to have to sort of like cut around this so I can slip this into the book itself. But what does it say on the back of the book? Because, you know, that's going to be different to what is on here. So. In the nightmare future of the 40th millennia, only the superior psychic mind of the Emperor shields humanity from certain extinction. Dedicated to his service are the warriors, agents, and myriad servants of the Imperium. Foremost amongst them stand the Space Marines, men strengthened by advanced bioprocessing techniques to create the ultimate human warrior. The galaxy is a hostile place. There are alien forces, even unwitting humans, that would enslave or destroy mankind if they could. The struggle it continues unabated. Wars rage over airless planets in the city bottoms of hive worlds and within the Imperium itself. From the dark regions of warp space, chaotic entities spin webs to ensnare the weak and beguile the innocent. Everywhere, soulless spectres and slavering monsters are poised to extinguish the life of humanity. There is no time for peace, there is no respite, no forgiveness. There is only war. Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Traders are a miniatures-based tabletop game designed for 2 or more players to represent the forces of the Imperium or any one of the many enemies ranged against its borders. Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader is suitable for games varying in size from shootouts and simple skirmishes to full-scale battles. Inside you will find rules and description covering combat, rules for warfare in the distant future, equipment, the technology of conflict described, the age of the Imperium, full details of history, background and warriors, the advanced gamer, a further selection of rules and information on advanced play, a special scenario introductory game including all the details you need to play plus cut out encounters. Now, there's no chance that I'm going to be cutting this out, but okay, so here we have one of those kind of famous kind of pieces of artwork inside the front cover. Absolutely terrific. We've got a couple of pieces, it's reprinted in the back. Okay. And this is actually reprinted on really glossy, nice paper. The original wouldn't have been. Because that would have been far too expensive, I don't believe. You know, would have been printed on matte paper. Here we've got the contents page, and then we turn the page and we've got an introduction, just to look about what the book is about. Gives a good introduction, and all the layout. The layout is Games Workshop 1987 par excellence. You know, you saw this kind of layout in the Judge Dredd role-playing game. You saw the kind of layout in White Dwarf and Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. So here we've got discussion on the field of battle, and you've got the types of terrain at the bottom there. Troop characteristics with a picture of the chapter of the Dark Brotherhood, and the types of miniatures you can buy. Of course, you know, this was also, the rule book would also be advertising essentially the miniatures you would buy. And then, you know, not only just here are the types of miniatures you can buy, here is what they look if you painted them. Well, of course, Games Workshop had its own, or Citadel Miniatures had its own team of you know, painters who would prepare them, you know, paint them, prepare them to be photographed and so on. So we'll move on. We've got basically the explanation of the turn sequence, what you do from in each of in each phases. Rules for line of sight, with examples. Range, weapon modifiers, the rules to hit, area effect weapons, and then we move on to hand-to-hand combat. Being charged, unit coherency during charges, special attack arcs, and so on. You've got just very much the kind of things you would expect to have in a war game's rules. And then move the procedure for hand-to-hand combat, order of attack, throw to hit, disadvantage opponents to hit modifiers, and so on. And then we have a image of there's the rules. Then we've got a picture of a Marine commander. I have to say, as a side, it's odd that this has come out in 2024 rather than 2027, when it would have been 40 years old. But you know. More great artwork, with rules for breaking off from hand-to-hand combat, route of pursuit, and then rules for buildings, vehicles, and then move on to dreadnought suits. Got profiles for them and the effects of damage on dreadnought suits. Robots, special rules, arrow movement and combat. You know, essentially all the sort of things that say you expect in a science fiction miniatures combat rules. Personalities in the game, so you can have elements of role-playing in there. Not very much. I mean, certainly much less than was kind of suggested or hinted at in the Warhammer mass combat role-playing rules published, I mean, only 4 years before, in 1983. And we've got a section on psionics, followed by a list of all the abilities. And then move on to the first of the threats. So you've got rules for mutants and possible images of mutants. And I'm just wondering whether that's artwork by Martin McKenna. Does look like his artwork. I'm just going to check to see if he's listed. Yeah, he is. Yeah, the late great Martin McKenna. His artwork graced a number of different Warhammer and Games Workshop products. Point values for your different troops and forces, so you can build an army. And then we move on to the battle at the farm. So you've learnt all this. That's all the rules. Actually, surprisingly few rules before we move on to the battle at the farm. So you know, here's how you play, and there's basically fairly simple setup in battle where but it's taking you through step by step with shots from a game, including photographs, and then you've got a brief for the game master. So you actually need to have a game master on the table. And then we move on to equipment. See weapon profiles. Different images, so you've got classic things like bolters and flamers and auto guns, meta guns, or melter guns and needle guns. Another great illustration of essentially that's to every battle 1,000 heroes die alone, unsung and remembered. Yeah, bunch of orcs. So various different weapons. There's combat options. And so the artwork in here is fantastic. It's such a good, it's such a long time since I've looked at this, but it's such a good looking book. The artwork is terrific. And then we have an actual rogue trader, the rogue trader of the title. Rogue trader is basically the sort of like important personnel who have the rights to essentially operate big merchant ships under license, you know, by the emperor. Heavy weapons like grenade launchers, heavy plasma guns, heavy bolters. There we go. And it's absolutely full of sort of like, you know, big weapons, big characters, big chaos spiky bits. Even up, they've got basically all the way up to plasma cannons and Marco cannons. So you had heavy weapons, so you've got very heavy weapons. And then grenades and missiles. Again, prefigured by another nice piece of artwork. I mean, if they were doing a rule book today, it wouldn't have as much artwork. Really wouldn't. You know, this is stuff to the gills, you know, to the gunnels, as it were. And what's important to really kind of realize about this is it's just from this one rule book, so many different games and rule sets proliferated at numerous different scales. We've got a section on mines, laying mines, support weapons, and then we've got the summary of all the weapons at the end before we move on to vehicles. And we've got another, you know, so you've got like typical bikes, crawlers, sand crawlers. You've got a nice combat scenes photographed from the designer's own games, flyers. And you've got and hoverers and so on. There we go. Another great piece of artwork. Land speeders, juggernaut vehicles, landing pods. Yeah. And then we've got land raiders, basically just tanks based upon, you know, inspired by World War I tanks. They've got armor profiles, and even got a nice breakdown of what the armor is like. Robot profiles. So different types of robots and walkers and so on. Bionics. Miscellaneous equipment. Another great piece of artwork. And then we move on to the Age of the Imperium. Sorry, there's a cat moving around in the bushes behind me, I think. So we've got the lore, beginning of the lore section, and the background to the setting of Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader. And again, this section here is, you know, ultimately is the Bible for what would become what would follow, with numerous source books, lots and lots of novels and anthologies of fiction, comic books, you know, so, and the like, computer games, and so on. And then we have that's going to be an illustration of the Emperor himself at the centre of the sort of like the Imperium. So much lore and background here. We've got the move on to the Inquisition and their equipment. In the earlier section, let's have a look. I missed that. Was dealing with the Adeptus Terra. And then we have Psychers. So a lot of the background is sort of like the stats are kind of the stats and the game elements are woven into the background here. And then we've got the Legion's got the Legion's Astartes. And then we've got the Fortress Monastery of the Space Wolves. Let's see if I missed anything. Okay. And more lore. We've got illustrations and photographs of various characters and examples, sort of like shots taken from play. The warriors of the army, because you've got the Space Marines, and they're the elite faction, elite fighting forces. But you've also got the army, you know, just sort of like those who have been enlisted to fight, you know, the wars of the Emperor. And then essentially we've got rogue traders and you know, people like and other types of characters. You've got the essentially what would be what is the heraldry of the Space Marines and the different symbols and the like. And we move on down sort of like into the lower order, and we've got stats for assassins, and then more artwork. And we've kind of got an encounter. So I presume that's going to be sort of somewhere like a hive world or somewhere like that. Beastmen and abhumans. So abhumans include beastmen, halflings, ogrons, squats. And all of these have been part of Warhammer 40,000 lore for the last 30 odd years. Some of them have been taken out of the lore, some of them brought back in, and so on. We move on to, we've got more shots of here are the squats, your dwarves, and then we move on to the Elder Race and Craft Worlds. I would keep wanting to say, you know, Elder Lore and Craft Works, but I don't think you can, you know, how many German Krautrock, electronica bands can you have called Kraftwerk? Another shot, here we've got the Eldar in action. And all these tables are just sort of like, you know, yes, you can pick and choose, but you can roll randomly, you know, just do that way. Orchid space and the Orc domains. Again, great illustrations and photographs taken from the gaming table. And these are classic illustrations of orcs from the period. There we go. Gretchens, they're the goblins. Round. The ancient Slan and their inheritance. And then the Jokaero. They're a race I've not actually come across. But again, you know, they're not. I'm not, you know, deep into the lore of the Warhammer 40,000, as it were. You've got basically a nice. This is a nice shot. Basically, kind of inspired by the capture and the flag planting of Okinawa during World War II. Tyrannoids and hive fleets. You know, they're straight out of Space Hulk. You know, Tyrannoids and essentially are the equivalent. You know, and again with the sort of like the Gene Stealers, you kind of got with they're the equivalent of the xenomorphs from Alien. So we've got different other species. So we've got Zotes and Walk Creatures and Astral Hounds and Astral Spectres. So you've got a bestiary at the back. Enslavers, Psychonin and vampires. There's other creatures. And you almost go, you know, the thing is, I would actually say this is a role-playing game. This is not a role-playing game. It's written for a war game, but it's written like a war game, a role-playing game. That's the impression I'm getting. And it's quite odd, you know, you really want to go and sort of like role-play in this world, in this setting, but it's all designed for the war game, you know, at the skirmish level. We've got different plants in there as well. Could be a threat. And then creature charts for rolling random creatures. And you've got more artwork. Just to see how good this is. And then basically, those are the sort of images you would get used to advertise the miniatures. And then we move on to the section for the advanced gamer. So things like, having the upper hand, random directions, fast die throwing, random targeting, personalities of targets, hidden movement, scenic insanity, duck pack, and shock. Essentially, these are all the advanced options. These are optional rules. Indirect fire, corrective aiming. These are for experience when you've had a bit of experience in the basic play, or you've already an experienced wargamer. Things like handling planetary landings, and then we move on to extended battles and campaigns. Casualty campaigns, loss of vehicles, equipment, and so on. So, discussing sort of like the long-term play of this game beyond mere just one-off battles. We've got a plot generator, several tables of lengthy table of that. Multiple tables for that, in fact. And then we have a section on painting and collecting your forces. So preparation of your models, plastics, undercoating, painting, how to do it. Brushes, basic techniques, improving your painting techniques. And this is the sort of thing that will be subject of articles in White Dwarf again and again, which would provide lore for the setting, focus on new games, a guide to painting, another great piece of artwork. And then modelling, and then dealing with the hoarding impulse. The author tries not to just store any new and interesting looking box and pack it that it enters the household. Tries, but somehow he never quite manages to throw away the offending item. That's a nice personal touch. So, use of random household objects as, to create scenery. And then we come to the summary. So you've got tables for the different the turns and vehicles, attacking, and we've got some notes here on author's note on language, author's note on the technology of the age of the Imperium. Some more background along with another great illustration. Timeline of the Rogue Trader universe, actually incredibly short. Then we've got at the end, we've got a play sheet with reference tables, radius effect templates, details on Space Marines, summarising those, Game Masters information, and that's ready for. And then also on the orcs. Then we've got the Marine players brief for defending the farm scenario, the orc players brief, and the thing is, you don't have to use the miniatures for that encounter. You can use those the counters provided, so you could sort of basically learn to play using these counters before you went and bought your first miniatures. And then you've got unit to record sheet. And actually, you've got basically the other side of the record sheet. Then you've got adverts there for miniatures, Space Marines, Space Orcs. Those are the kind of the first things you'd be buying for once you've got hold of the Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader rulebook. What do I buy next? Oh, you buy those. Lots of different options. And then here we've got a nice little advert on the back for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and Fantasy Battles. With notably the Roleplay would have the first two or three parts there of the fabulous Enemy Within campaign. Okay, so and then that's it. That is Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader. I can't, unbelievable. I am really very impressed with that. Just the amount of wealth and detail in there, and in there in terms of background and setting as well as the rules, which makes me want to explore that setting, even just for a glance, and certainly role playing it more than it does play the miniatures battle. But as I say, this is written as a role playing game, but it's really a miniatures combat game. But the format screams role playing. You know, here's everything you need to play. Here's background. Here's a scenario. But yeah, fantastic looking book. Really very impressive reprint. I hope you've been able to get hold of one. Glad I did. I'm looking forward to really digging into this, giving this a proper review at some point, probably in 2027. If I'm absolutely honest, no point me reviewing it now. Let's do it on the anniversary of the core rules and the core game, when it deserves it. So yeah, Warhammer Rogue Trader, 40,000 Rogue Trader, published by Games Workshop. Lovely reprint version, just been released. Anyway, so hope you've enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook. If you have, then please do click on the like button down below. And of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to more unboxings of the Nook, where you'll see me out here with a box, although typically not one stamped with Warhammer and Games Workshop, which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching another unboxing in the Nook. I will be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.